Hello, I'm Chef Leanne. I live and work in the fabulous Florida Keys. For the next 3 episodes, I want to celebrate my mother, Cecilia. She taught me everything I know. Sit up straight, keep your shoulders back, keep your knees together, always keep eye contact. And she taught me everything I know about cooking. She fed 7 children on pennies a day, yet she always had a fabulous meal. She was a liberal in so many ways, but yet she was a staunch Republican. She was a devout Catholic. She raised all of us to be good Christians, as I did with my children. I want to follow in my mother's legacy. I want my daughters to follow in mine. I respect my mother in her pagan ways. Cooking with passion, bringing people together with a plate of food and a really good bottle of wine. This is for you, Mama. So, the first one I'm going to be doing today is one of Mom's favorites. It's a tomato salad. Very basic, very simple. But everybody who knew my mother, from my childhood friends, schoolmates, neighbors, cousins, anybody that knew my mother knows this recipe. We all called it jaboul. Why she called it jaboul, I have no idea, because it's not in the Italian dictionary. But that's what everybody knows it as. And that's the one that I'm going to do today. So you need a really good fresh tomato. I've got some that are on the vine that I've already cut up. Put them in this bowl. I've got some yellow onion. And I'm using jalapeno, although my mother would have used a good Italian pepper. I like the heat from the jalapeno. Salt, pepper, a lot of salt. Some pepper. A really good olive oil. And then I'm going to add some water to it. And then what she used to do is she would put it in the refrigerator to let all these flavors marry together. And then we would sit around the dinner table with a beautiful loaf of crusty bread. And we would eat the jaboul, and we would dunk the bread into the juices. I'm gonna use the heel. Now on an Italian's table, you really didn't have butter because you used the bread for the dunking the sauces. So you could see in here all of this. Now after it marinates in the refrigerator for a while, these juices get more, and so that you have a bowl full of tomatoes, onions, and peppers with lots of juice. You take your bread and you just dunk it like that, and that was a meal in my house. And this is one of my favorite memories of my mother. The next meal that we're gonna do after this one is Mom's other favorite. It's risotto. And there's a technique in cooking risotto. So the next dish that I'm going to do was also one of my mother's favorite dishes. It's a risotto, and I'm going to do a stone crab risotto because I love to add the Caribbean flair to the Italian cooking. So stone crab, you only eat the claw of the stone crab. Technically, you're only allowed to take one claw, and then you have to throw the other one back. That way the crab still has a defense mechanism. We're going to use the crab in 2 different applications. I'm going to use the top half of the claw to serve as a garnish with my risotto, and I'm going to use the knuckles of the claw to put into the risotto. This nifty little device right here is a stone crab cracker, and you can get it in any of the local fish markets. Stick this right in here and give it a nice crack, and then you want to crack the knuckles like that. And then you just pull the meat out. And then for the knuckles, same thing. Give it a good crack and pull the meat out. The shell of the stone crab, I'm going to make the broth for the risotto. And that really should cook for several hours. So I did it earlier today, and I went ahead and I made the broth, but I wanted to show you very quickly. I just have some carrots, some celery, peppercorn, and I have all of the shell of the stone crab in there. And that is what I'm going to use to make the broth for the risotto. Leave that in there. All right, to get started, you should use a heavy cast iron skillet, and you should always have a wooden spoon. This is the way I was taught to make a good risotto. Good heavy pot, wooden spoon. I'm going to start with a little bit of butter. This one, 2 of those. A little bit of olive oil. Some cut up shallots. And I chopped the asparagus up fine to cook in the risotto, and left the tips of the asparagus to add towards the end of the process because I don't want them to disintegrate. So that's more as a garnish. Give that a good saute. So my mother raised 7 children in the 60s and the 70s. I am the youngest of the 7 children with my twin brother, Court. So I've got arborio rice, which is very important with cooking with risotto. The arborio rice is a medium grain rice, and it's a little bit flatter, and it absorbs the broth much more. And what makes a risotto is you have to keep adding the broth a little bit at a time, and it's a very slow process. You know, when I was growing up as a young child, my grandmother lived with us. My mom worked full-time. She also was a food writer for the local New York Post. I was working in the banking industry, and I had a fond memory every single time I would have a lunch break, an hour maybe, I would run to my mother's house, and she would cook me lunch. I would go back, and everybody was eating a cold sandwich that they had in the refrigerator, and I would tell them, oh, I just had some of my mom's risotto. And so they were always jealous that I had this really good cooking. All right, so my rice is sauteing. I've got some white wine. I'm gonna add that in there. I want that to reduce a little bit. My mother was also a novice sailor, I guess you would say. Her and my stepdad, Skipper, loved to go sailing. He was the diver in the family, and he was the one that always dove for the stone crab, lobster. He spearfished, always brought back fish, and my mother had an abundance of the seafood. I think that's where I got the passion for adding a Caribbean flair to the Italian dishes. All right, now With the risotto, I'm just going to add a little bit of broth at a time. And then you want to just keep stirring this until it reduces. I don't want to add the stone crab meat in yet because I don't want to overcook it. So I'm going to wait towards the end and do the tips and the stone crab meat at the same time. This broth has already reduced, so I'm adding a little bit more. When the stone crab are harvested here, the commercial fishermen bring in the crab. They have the whole crab. They only take the one claw. They throw the rest of the crab back. The other claw, it regenerates and grows back if it's broken correctly. When they bring the stone crabs up on the boats, they have a huge pot of boiling water and they boil the stone crab. So when we get the stone crab here at the market, it's an already cooked crab. So you don't necessarily have to cook it again. It's served cold. I believe it only takes about 8 months for a crab to regenerate its claw back. And you can tell how old the crab is by the number of spots that it has on it. The more spots, the older it is. I think some of the stone crab right now are going for $40 a pound. These here are small. The colossal size are quite big, and you would pay probably $40 for one claw. It's a delicacy. The meat is sweet. But if you come down here to the Keys, you can't not try a stone crab. This is a labor of love. You can't walk away from the pot. You got to keep stirring it. And my grandmother would say you have to stir it in one direction. I don't know if I follow that very well. I'm turning the temperature down on it because I'm keeping a really close eye on it. I don't want it to really have a hard boil. I'd rather it just stay at a simmer. This will take probably another 10 minutes. I'll add a couple more scoops of broth here, but in 10 minutes I think we'll be ready to add the crab and then the rest of the asparagus, and at that point we can go ahead and do the plating. So my risotto is just about done. The rice is al dente, and I still have that creaminess. I'm going to go ahead and add just the knuckles of the stone crab. They're already cooked, so all I'm doing is heating up the crab meat. Now, in a traditional risotto, you would add the Parmesan cheese at this stage. But because I have seafood in this dish, no self-respecting Italian would add cheese to a seafood dish. So I'm sticking with that. And you really don't need it. The flavors in here are just awesome. Go, that is beautiful. And then stone crab claws on the side for my garnish. And there you have it. Stone crab and asparagus risotto, the way my mama would make it.
Hi, I'm Jo Grego with Island Breeze Vacations. Island Breeze manages vacation rental properties in Marathon, Key Colony Beach, and Grassy Key. We have everything from modest condominiums to luxury vacation rentals with views like this. We are locally owned and operated, and we want you to experience the Florida Keys like the locals do. To book your vacation today, call Island Breeze.